So it's been about a month since Secretary of Commerce Lutnick and President Trump announced the Gold Card program in the Oval Office. Now, at the time, we kind of reserved making this video because we wanted to know more. But I think now we have enough kind of clues and bits and pieces that other people really haven't been talking about. I think are very, very important for us to try to predict what could be happening in the future. And so obviously the first clue was on the first day. We got a couple of clues. We got from President Trump himself that gold card holders would not be subject to worldwide income tax. We heard that it would be replacing EB-5, which we'll talk about in a second. And we also heard that this could be a way for tech companies to bring over top talent, which that has been a big issue for the Trump administration. It's actually been a divide in the Republican Party where you have some people that feel like we should be opening visas up for top talent, for graduates of top universities here in the United States. And you even have a lot of supporters in tech like a Peter Thiel and Elon Musk that have been really trying to push this into Trump's agenda. And then you have the more traditional anti-immigration folks on the Republican Party that, legal or not legal, they really don't want it at all. So how does President Trump find a way to get this across the finish line? Because his most important goal, which is also a clue that he gave us, was that he wants to pay down national debt. And to make this program really, really marketable, despite the steep $5 million fee, you gotta have no worldwide income tax. Now, the next day, Secretary of Commerce Lutnick mentioned, well, it might actually go together with EB-5. It's not gonna replace EB-5, it'll probably go together with EB-5. So they must have done their homework. I think what they see here, given the clue that we got the very next day about potentially the gold card program passing with EB-5, we start to see now that the two programs could actually be complementary, that EB-5 may have to actually be the conduit that the gold card program uses. And so fast forward to a couple of days ago, Secretary of Commerce was on a podcast. And in this podcast, he mentioned that he had pre-sold. He said he had sold. I'm going to say the word pre-sold because the program doesn't even exist yet. He said he had sold 1,000 gold cards, which I think gives us another clue about how they intend to pass this, because they're moving very quickly. He even said that Elon Musk was working on finding a way to expedite background checks by using AI and all of the information that you could find on the web, as well as probably what's on the Department of Homeland Security's database. You can see now that they're already starting to put the plan in motion. That wouldn't make sense to spend so much time and effort on that if they wanted to go through Congress. Congress is anything but guaranteed. Trying to go through a traditional route of lawmaking is going to be very difficult because it's still going to require some Democrats to vote in favor of it. Trying to go through a reconciliation bill is going to be very difficult because immigration is not really a budgetary measure. So I'm not going to get into depth on that. If for any reason we see a clue that it might be through Congress, we will be sure to upload a new video. But today we're going to talk about what does it take to try to get this done via an executive order through the executive branch. So how can the executive branch espouse an existing program, right? And in its process of carrying out that program, of executing on the existing law, how can it sort of reinterpret things or reimagine things to where they could tool an existing law to include the gold card? And that's where we got that clue from Secretary Lutnick that it would probably happen together with EB-5. So what does that look like? Right, so EB-5, you have an $800,000, minimum of an $800,000 investment, has to go to create 10 jobs, and has a filing fee of $11,000. The gold card program is a straight fee of $5 million that's going to go to pay down national debt. So it's not an investment, doesn't need to create jobs. And once again, if you wanted to create more visas for the gold card program, you'd have to go through Congress. So that's where the EB-5 program comes in, to where the gold card could be attached to EB-5. So potentially that $11,000 fee could become a $5 million fee. And a lot of people have talked about that, the potential of that. There were some rumors going around, Trump's going to do it any second. But remember that EB-5 green card holders still have to pay worldwide income tax. So they'd have to find a way to add it in there saying, well, now EB-5, you don't have to pay worldwide income tax, right? Now, I still think because that is something that Congress would have to determine, that would be met with a lot of backlash and would likely be held up in courts. So how do you make sure that something doesn't get held up in courts? Well, you got to make sure that there's no stakeholders that have a problem with it, right? Taking anything to court is very expensive in the United States. And so, but if you do ruffle the wrong feathers, in this case, ruffling the feathers of the EB5 interest groups, there would likely be a lawsuit there that would hold it up in courts. Now, how do you make it to where EB5 stakeholders could get behind the gold card being a part of EB5? Well, you could very easily make it an add-on to where you're making an EB5 investment. Instead of paying an $11,000 fee, perhaps you pay a $5 million fee. And with that, you could get expedited processing through this new AI software, which expedited processing currently does not exist in the EB5 program. It does exist in other immigration, U.S. Immigration programs. So it would not be very controversial to do that. And then, of course, they wouldn't pay worldwide income tax. Now, the other thing here, though, to make sure that EB5 stakeholders are not opposed to this, is you got to make sure that the Gold Card Visa the Gold Card Visa beneficiaries are not taking EB5 visas in front of EB5 investors. EB5 is already extremely limited. You actually heard President Trump mention that there's a big backlog, a big wait list for EB5. We're actually only afforded, EB5 is only afforded 10,000 visas a year. And so one investor might have 3 or 4 family members, they're all taking a visa. So in actuality, on average, we only have 3,000 visas or 3,000 investment spots available per year in EB5. And that's why there's a backlog. The USCIS just announced that certain countries, India and China, are likely to start to meet a backlog this year for EB5. So in order for President Trump to ensure that visas could be available for those tech workers, here's the other clue that we got that nobody's really seeming to talk about, is this could be a way for the Googles and the Amazons to bring over top talent, right, through the Gold Card program. Now, in order to have that happen, they would have to make sure there's no backlog. And there are 2 ways that the executive branch could interpret the law, reinterpret the law, to ensure that there's more visas available in the EB5 program. One, you just heard the issue with derivative visas, right? One investor bringing over their family, everyone's getting a visa that counts against the 10,000 annual amount of visas that are available for EB5. The lottery program, which you don't have to have any qualification, no educational background, we give out 50,000 of those per year, compared to people that are investing $800,000, have gone through intense background checks, are going to come here and invest a lot more. We only give out 10,000 of those a year, really only 3,000 investment spots. So you can see here where counting derivative visas could make sense, especially when you put the gold card into the equation, because that would help alleviate a lot of the backlog that we're starting to see for China and India. The other potential change that the executive branch could make is this idea of rollover visas. So once again, this has been a practice in other immigration categories, just not EB5, where any unused visas from previous years could then roll over. EB5 right now only has a maximum 2-year rollover, and that's something that was just instituted. So if you were to go back from the beginning of time when EB5 was established in 1990, that would actually be tens of thousands of visas, probably hundreds of thousands of visas, that could then be immediately made available for EB5. Sounds like a lot, but once again, family immigration, if you were born here and you want to invite your parents, or if you just got married and got your citizenship and you want to invite your parents, we give out hundreds of thousands of those per year. So once again, not very controversial, and it makes business sense. So lastly, just want to say, being a big supporter and proponent of EB5 ourselves, we are actually thrilled about the Gold Card and what it could mean for the EB5 program. Thank you.